Liberals are lashing out after losing big at the Supreme Court. Landmark rulings on student loans, affirmative action, and religious rights have radical Democrats acting like spoiled children who didn't get their way.
This far-right, extremist, imbalanced Supreme Court, which seeks to make history for all the wrong reasons.
They are basically reinterpreting congressional statute to fit their ideological preconceptions.
I support expanding the Supreme Court because we have a radical, extreme supermajority on Supreme Court.
We need Supreme Court ethics reform, and we need term limits.
You really need to be having conversations about judicial review as a check on the courts as well. There also must be impeachment on the table. We have a broad level of tools to deal with misconduct, overreach, and abuse of power.
Oh. And if AOC's ramblings weren't unhinged enough, Sopranos actor Michael Imperioli is coming under fire after posting this. I've decided to forbid bigots and homophobes from watching The Sopranos, The White Lotus, Goodfellas, or any movie or TV show I've been in. Thank you, Supreme Court, for allowing me to discriminate and exclude those who I don't agree with and am opposed to. Maybe he could benefit from some mindful breathing and not ending sentences in prepositions. Boston University law school students are being offered therapy in the wake of the Supreme Court rulings. Now, Judge, I just heard AOC use a term that has a great deal of meaning in this country's history. She said we have judicial review. Yes, in Marbury versus Madison in 1803, Chief Justice Marshall, writing for a unanimous Supreme Court, said that we have three co-equal branches of government, and judicial review means, and I quote, a law that is repugnant to the Constitution is void. It is the job of the Supreme Court, that's a judicial review here, not you reviewing the judiciary, AOC. Judicial review means the Supreme Court reviews laws and executive actions, like the one taken in the student loan case, and sees if it is compatible with the Constitution.
Look, these people have no idea. The people that we just heard from, one talked about reinterpreting congressional statute. They're very upset about that. Look, the Supreme Court has a job, and the job of the Supreme Court is to look at legislation that's brought up before them and decide whether or not it's constitutional or not constitutional. The fact that they don't like that is their problem. If you don't like it, go get another law passed. You're in Congress, AOC. You should know that. That's what you do every day, I think. And the whole idea of someone saying, well, you know, this is about the will of the people. I think it was Ayanna Pressley who said that one. Well, no kidding. The will of the people, 52% of them, was to overturn affirmative action. So you're wrong on that one, too. And by the way, as it relates to affirmative action, there was literally no congressional statute to interpret. So these people are clueless, and the idiocy stuns me.
Richard, I'm concerned about the assault on institutions when people don't like what happens with that institution at that moment. So we are castigating and denigrating the Supreme Court as being center-right. We should pack the court. We should have impeachments of certain justices. This actually was a mild reaction compared to the assassination attempt last year on Justice Kavanaugh while he and his wife and daughters were sleeping in their home. But what can we do to convince people, particularly members of Congress, whose job it is to make the laws? That's not the Supreme Court's job, to turn down the temperature. If you don't like the outcome, tell them to pass a law. Help us here.
I agree. I think we should be passing laws, and I think Congress should pass more laws so the Supreme Court doesn't have to interpret as much as it does. With that being said, I think when you look at some of the rulings that came down this week, I almost agree with the judge. I think we should really be having a conversation because, look, especially the affirmative action.
It was hard to say that, wasn't it? I almost agree with the judge. That was hard.
I wasn't. Listen, I might shock you at the end of the conversation.
I was waiting to see which judge exactly you did.
But listen, when you look at the affirmative action case, I think there's been a lot of bluster around who it benefits and who it doesn't benefit, right? Because I think the assumption out there is that somehow people of color are benefiting tremendously via this law, right? Harvard's black population is 6.6%. But there's some good news still happening today because there was a complaint filed by lawyers for civil rights against Harvard University going after their legacy program, which we know 40% of the students at Harvard University are there because either their parents went there or they're a millionaire and they're a billionaire and they can buy a building. And I think that is a bigger problem in the admissions process in this country than anything else.
Yeah.
And I would go a step further. I think what you're also going to see after this affirmative action case is the beginning of the end of standardized testing, because I think with the SATs and the ACTs, it's another barrier to entry for not only African Americans and Latinos and Latinas, but also for poor people, right? Because a lot of folks now these days, kids are taking SAT prep classes in the 8th grade because they can afford to do it. So if you're poor and you can't afford to do it, you're sitting for a test that somebody's been preparing for 6, 7, 8 years, and that is indeed a barrier to entry. So if we're going to talk about leveling the playing field, let's not go after 6% of the student body at Harvard University. Let's figure out how we go after the 40% and make it actually fair and equal.
So what do you say to them, though?
What about Jameel Hill? Let's pull that if we can. I mean, we see people talking about these outrageous quotes here, if we can read that. I mean, she's basically saying that the Asian Americans are complicit in white supremacy.
That they're carrying the water.
Trying to exclude African American students when they were just trying to be included based on merit. But look, Joey, let me ask you this. I'm very concerned, too, that we've got these dissents of snarkiness now. You have Justice Sotomayor, I think, and Justice Gorsuch going at it. And it's compelled Chief Justice Roberts to say, listen, there's a difference between disagreement, which we expect, and disparagement of each other. And he's asking them to calm down.
Yeah, real quick, I agree with you about giving poor kids more opportunity earlier on, and school choice is a great way to do that, to get them prepared. But to move on from that, also, let's not give Jameel Hill any attention. She just wants to make people hate each other. That's what she stands for. When it comes to the Supreme Court, I agree in this same spirit of kumbaya. I agree with Joe Biden and AOC on some of this. Number one, Joe Biden said he does not believe in packing the court. He thinks that'll just make it more divisive and make it more polarized, and I 100% agree with him on that. Unfortunately, his party doesn't. With AOC, I love any notion to bring more ethics to people of power. I really do. If you want to add it to the Supreme Court or add more to Congress or add more to the executive branch, or, especially when presidents and their sons go out and make deals with other people, like bring in ethics and ethics rules to people in power.
Joe, we might have an agreement. We can work on some Supreme Court ethics together.
And number two, I love the idea of term limits. I love the idea of term limits. I mean, somebody's falling asleep sitting there. Or do they have their faculties about them to be a Supreme Court justice? Well, do they also, that also applies to the presidency if you want to apply it to Supreme Court justice. Do you have the faculties to be president? So a lot of these things they're throwing over at the Supreme Court, really they don't want to apply to, I don't know, the president. And so what does that mean? They expect more from the Supreme Court? Okay, well, I do too. So then I look and I say, if I'm going to expect more from them, then maybe I'll give them a little bit more respect. And then looking at these decisions, if I'm going to be an actor and I'm going to take issue with something as intellectual and academic as how the law works, I'm at least going to take the time to understand it. The actor said, well, now I get to be a bigot and tell you can't watch my movies. Well, the Supreme Court decision didn't say she gets to decide who looks at her website. She gets to decide how she expresses any point of view in her art, which means the Supreme Court reassured he never has to play a conservative in a movie.
Yes, that is true. And that's Christopher Montesanti for the Sopranos fans. And he's just wrong about what that case means. The court upheld its rationale that we don't compel speech. We don't compel speech by you that offends your religious beliefs in this case. But let's broaden this out. A year ago, after the Dobbs decision, people said the court was really bold in upending precedent, Roe versus Wade, of 50 years. This year, the court was asked to overturn 6 cases and did not in any of those cases. So they basically agreed with the lower courts on a number of these seminal cases. How do you characterize the end of the term?
Well, look, I'm a little... this idea that there's supposed to be Democrats and Republicans everywhere, like we have them in Congress, we don't need them in the judiciary. I mean, I'm not kidding when I say there shouldn't be any liberal judges. Am I out of line in saying that? The judges should be conservative.
Politics.
And the idea is that they should be without politics and they should interpret the Constitution like you said. So this idea that we're supposed to have balance, we're not supposed to have balance.
These
no Democrats
don't
and
know what they're
Republicans.
talking
Supposed
about.
to read the Constitution, and it's the legislators who are raising the most grief, and they're the ones who are supposed to make the laws. They have power to do this.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Kilmeade. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to click to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page. This is the only way that I know for sure that you're not going to miss any great commentary, any great news bites, any great interviews coming your way on Fox. You can get it all here on YouTube. So subscribe right now.